Today I'm going to show you how to use Refine Edge to create graphics, signatures, blends, and how much better it is, easier it is to use that versus a layer mask with the paintbrush tool. Now you see here, this is something that probably only took me 20 minutes to make. It's very simple. I only have the two pictures, two different textures, and then some font. I use my blending modes a lot. But that being said, let's get started and to see how I can show you how to use Refine Edge to preserve the fine details of her hair. Now, this is what your outcome should be. You see how much it looks, as if the background was never there. If you were to try to do this with a layer mask, you would have had to sacrifice some of these thin wispies on the very edge, because you would never have been able to get all of the background color out of those without it looking a little strange and not well done, I guess. Sorry, I'm trying to find the right words. So, you'll notice, for one thing, when using Refine Edge, the types of pictures you use, you're going to have a much better success if you choose pictures that have solid backgrounds, that have a lot of contrast between the background and the edge of the object. You also would be better to use high quality images. Medium quality can work for signatures as long as they're big enough to use them however you need to. I also do a bit of image prep. I like to sharpen, use topaz clean, or I apply coloring before I start using my Refine Edge tool. So, let's zoom in just a little bit. You're going to need your quick selection tool. It's about fourth down. You may have the magic wand selected instead. Just hold down until it pops up and choose the one you want. The quick selection is probably the most frustrating part because it's very sensitive. You click in the wrong spot, and suddenly you've got all this stuff selected that you didn't want selected. So you're going to start at the top or at the bottom, doesn't matter, and you're just going to click and drag. And you notice how it's doing a pretty good job of selecting her but not the background. And you may want to zoom in. Oops. To get a better see. Now when this happens, I'll do one of two things. I'll Control Z, undo it, try to do it again. If for whatever reason it's not working for me, it keeps happening, I will just hold down my Alt button, and you see how selecting Alt moves your option to the subtract from selection, and I'm just going to trace her outline, and it's going to bring that in to much better selection. Now once you think you've got it, you know, it looks good enough, you're tired of messing with it, and you just, oops, what happened there? You can go on to the next step, which is clicking your Refine Edge tool. Now let's go over our view modes first. If you click here, you'll see you have several different options. On layers, because there's nothing behind her, that's why you see this transparent background. If there was something behind her, you would see whatever was behind her, there instead. You can look at it on white or on black. When the background is light, I like to use black because that's going to help me see to get all of that bright color as much as I can. If it's a dark background, you'll want to use white. So I'm going to use black because the background's kind of light. Now, the thing that CS5 has that I don't think other versions do with Refine Edge is the Smart Radius option. So we're going to go ahead and click that. And I'm going to bring it up just about 7, 8. Let's zoom out just a little bit. You have some adjust your edges options here. I like to play with those a little bit sometimes, but you don't necessarily have to. I find it's better to not, unless I'm having a hard time getting the result I want with just the Smart Radius and the Decontaminate Colors options. So now when you have your Smart Radius tool selected, this is the size of your brush. It's set at 35. I'm going to make that a little bit smaller. So you don't want it too big because you don't want to be coloring all out here, because it's going to distort the background, and then you're going to have to use your eraser tool to come over here and clean it up. So I like to take out all the steps I can, so I just start with a small brush. And you're just going to paint around her edges, try to get all the little spots of the white, gray color, whatever it is. And I know it looks kind of weird, but usually it comes out pretty good. That's why it's kind of important to use images that have solid backgrounds. So it's only having to pick out one color or one range of colors. If you have a whole lot of stuff going on back here, it's going to have a harder time detecting, what color to remove, to decontaminate. See here, let me show you. I just kind of painted down here where I didn't really need it, and you see how it puts some nasty color right there. That's why you don't want to be all over here with a big brush. Now, we're going to click Decontaminate Colors. You can slide this back and forth. You can go higher, lower. It's set at 50%, but I'm going to go, you can try lower and see what that does. Higher, but I'm going to stay around the 60s. That's probably good. I think that's what I had before. And I want to output to new layer with layer mask. I also tend to click remember settings, so that way, if I'm working with a picture that's from the same shoot, that the colors and everything are pretty similar, I don't have to go back through and redo all this. It's going to remember it for me. So I'm going to hit OK. Now let's compare to the one I had before. And they look pretty similar. And I have another image. I'm going to, I had two. So I'm going to do this one really quickly. You will get better at this, I'm sure, with a little practice. The pictures you like, the very thin hairs up here are kind of similar to the background color, so those are probably not going to come through as well, but that's okay. Okay, now, so I have my two images prepared. I'm going to come over here. I have here, it's a standard signature size. I have two textures selected that I chose for this project. You can do more, you can do less. I just chose something quickly, randomly. I'm going to change my windows to show 2 by 2, and I'm going to grab her from this image and drag her into this one. And I'll go back to normal. Now you notice how she's on a darker background, and it doesn't quite look that great, but notice when she's on a lighter background, it doesn't show through as much. So that's something you have to play with. The textures you use will have a lot to do with how good it's going to look as far as their brightness. I'm going to bring that over her and hide it for right now. Alright, now let's do the other one. She's probably a bit too big, so let's go ahead and resize her. Let's go transform scale, and if you hold down your shift key as you drag, it's going to resize her proportionately, so she's not all stretched or I think I just messed her up. And when you have the right size, you just hit enter, and there you go. Alright, now let's go back to this one. And we're just, hold on. And we're just going to do the same thing. And again, she's a little big, so let's make her just a little bit smaller. Now, one thing you might notice is that because of the picture we cut her out of, part of her arm is very straight because that's how they crop that picture. Now we can fix that. You can use, I guess, a lower opacity brush. I like to use my gradient tool. I think it looks better. So first, let's duplicate this layer for safekeeping. And now we're going to just pick one of them, hide the other, and we're going to select our mask. We're going to hit the gradient tool, and you're going to want to make sure you have your foreground to transparent selected. Now the gradient tool can be frustrating because the direction it goes depends on how you drag your mouse, and it's a little hard to understand. I don't even completely understand it. I just do a bunch of trial and error. If I drag it, it's not where I want to go. I hit Control Z and I try again. But we're going, and if you do really short strokes, it's going to be more solid color. If you do a really long stroke, it's going to fade much farther. You can see what I mean? Like a long stroke and it went really out, really faded. But a short stroke, see how this line got really dark, right? Let's undo that. Now, so let's use the gradient tool to clean that edge up. And I just do it a little slowly because I don't want to do too much. And eventually it's going to reach her on the mask. And you just want to soften that edge a little bit so it doesn't look like, you know, part of her arm is just missing. Alright, that looks good enough, I think. Maybe one more time. Alright. Now, I have this layer right here. And I want to put it on top of her, but I want to play with the blending mode. And you can see how the different options make it look different. Yeah, that's how you can play with textures to achieve different effects. I believe I chose color on my example image because you can see it's mostly, you know, grayscale, but there's little splashes of color coming through. And I'm going to take this layer I have down here because I want to make a copy of it and I want to bring it back to the top. And I'm going to do the same thing with it. Except this time I'm going to choose soft light. Maybe I think I chose soft light. Or no. Hold on, let me see. What? Yeah, it was soft light. Okay. So I have it on soft light, and that looks okay. That looks kind of cool, right? I like how this little bit of color comes through on top. You can even change the blending mode of, let's say, one of our two objects here that we've pasted on. Sometimes I like doing that. Kind of makes it cool, fun looking. Or you can just leave it as normal. It's up to you, whatever you think looks best. And I just, from here on out, I just add different things. I'll play with my typography. I might download a brush or two. One thing I like to do is play with shapes. I like lines. I like how, let's pick color. I like doing, like here, I just drag this line across. And then I might put it on color burn. Yeah, I can play with that. And that kind of looks kind of cool, right? And then, you know, text. I'm not on my personal computer, so I don't really have a whole lot of font choices here. I mean, you get the idea, I'm sure. And I mean, that's pretty much it. This whole process doesn't take very long. I mean, of course, you can do a whole lot more with it, but for the basic how-tos, you know, getting your images cleaned up doesn't take very long. You spend the rest of the time making it look, you know, however you want it to look. So that's pretty much it. I'm really glad you've decided to give this a look. I will hope to make more tutorials, and I really hope that you found it helpful. If you have any questions or comments, I would love to hear them.